welcome to my Kindred bow painting tutorial for Lamb from League of Legends. So to get my bow up to the original point, I've carved it out of insulation foam, covered it in warbler, carved in all of the wood grain and everything that I wanted, covered it in gesso and sanded it, and then primed it just with basic white acrylic paints. Off my gradient, I've just blocked in some solid colours. So the paints I use are Sonja's acrylic paints. You can get them at basically any art store, generic like hobby stores like Spotlight for us in Australia, I think Hobby Lobby or Joann's or something in America. I don't know overseas things. I just know Spotlight and Minecraft have them. But I'm using the darkest colour in the centre, which is just the straight purple from the tube. I think this was ultramarine purple or something like that. I'll put all the names down in the comments section. So I'm just going to block out the colour that I want the base of the gradient to be. So I start off with the darkest purple, and then I'll move into a progressively lighter purple, and then the aqua colour at the ends. Okay, now that we have our super nice colour blocks, I'm going to start doing dry brushing. So this is probably not the easiest way to do this, or the best way to do this, but it's a painting technique I know pretty well, and it sort of allows you to control better where the paint is going. So what you want is a thick or thin, doesn't really matter, brush that's being cut off flat over the base. Then you just pick up a little bit of paint and then brush most of that off, which is why I'm using the smaller palette. And the really thin layer of paint you have left, you can just very gently brush over the top. So the brushes I'm using are stencil brushes. And all I'm doing is sort of swapping between the dark colour and the lighter colours to get the kind of gradient that I'm looking for. So I start off with the darker colours to really blend that line, the really distinct line between the two colour gradients. And then I'll move into the lighter colours and sort of mix it through. My computer's off to the side, as you can see, so I have a reference photo up on that to give me an idea of where the gradient needs to go. And it's basically just a matter of pushing it back and forth with the different colours. Mixing whatever you need to get that really smooth gradient that you're looking for. It's going to take a while. Looks fast, is not fast. Takes hours. But you can end up with a really nice transition that you could probably get very easily with an airbrush, but I can't afford an airbrush. So this is the way I do it instead. And as you can see, at this point it's sort of turning into a really smooth gradient on the right compared to how it is on the left. So I'll just keep working that through until I get to the desired shift that I want. I actually ended up running 3 brushes at a time. So I had one brush for the really darker purples, a brush for a pale blue, which I used as a transition between aqua and the purple, and then an aqua brush as well. So where the aqua meets the purple, it's a really harsh transition because the colours are so different. So I used the pale blue to transition between the two colours, and it was basically the same as the purple, just a matter of working it back and forth until I had that nice transition where it sort of flowed from the purple into the aqua with that blue acting as a buffer. It's basically just a matter of playing around until you get what you need. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I ended up with a darker part in the center than I intended, and mine isn't exactly accurate to the in-game either. I took my own license with it to get what I thought was a more aesthetically appealing thing. Okay, and now up to the fun part. You might be able to tell I've kind of lightened the aqua parts. They were a bit too harsh for me, so I just went over it in a lighter color. But for the details on her bow, I've mixed up a slightly darker shade of the aqua. And when I did my wood grain, I also carved in the detail lines. So all I'm really doing is just filling that in. It means that I don't have to paint them freehand on top, so I'm just filling in the gaps, and it gives me a really nice crisp edge to work to. So my lines were looking pretty good, but I wasn't totally happy with them. They sort of blurred a bit at the edges and weren't particularly distinct. So I've used a technique that's a lot better demonstrated by Kinpatsu Cosplay. I've linked her video in the comments because she explains it a lot better than I do. But basically I'm just putting a line of oil paint along the edges and then smudging it out to try and give it a bit of a blended effect, tie in the detailing with the gradient a bit more, and basically just give it a little bit more of a visual boost when you're looking at it. Final bit. So once my oil paint was dry, I just coated it in a couple of layers of clear sealant to sort of not mess up any of the nice work we've already done, because they're water-based paints, and what I'm doing here is a black wash, or purple wash in this case. Basically just a whole bunch of water with a little bit of black and purple mixed in. I didn't want a pure black, but I'm just dumping all of that over our nice bow and letting it soak into the cracks a bit, and then dabbing or wiping it off, whatever sort of worked better to keep it in the wood grain but not sitting on the surface. So it sort of makes that wood grain stand out a lot more, particularly in the aqua parts, and really gives you a good feel for all of the detail that's in the bow. It just makes it stand out a little bit more, gives it a bit more oomph. And the Kindred I'm going for, being my own design, is sort of a bit grittier and darker and dirtier than the in-game one is. So it's basically a good way to really dirty up your bow. That's it. That's the last thing that I did. Just another couple of coats of sealer to keep all of our nice hard work done. And that's how I think made my Kindred bow. Apologies for the super low quality photo, but I'll get a better one eventually. Let me know if you liked this, if it made sense. If you've got any questions, head over to my Facebook page if you want to see more in-depth tutorials or walkthroughs of what I've actually done. And yeah, let me know if you'd like to see more of this in the future.